Welcome to Podkey NFL, where today it's Texans hype, weird stats, and a very soft Patriots schedule. A lot of this episode comes down to one uncomfortable NFL truth. The numbers can make a team look sturdy, right up until they don't. And then there are the stats that just sit there, year after year, daring anyone to explain them. The big headline from Football Outsiders' 2026 Almanac is that Houston comes in as the top AFC pick to reach the Super Bowl. The case starts with the defense, which is projected as elite, and then shifts to an offense that doesn't need to be amazing so much as clearly better than it was. The logic there is pretty straightforward. A healthier offensive line, veteran running back David Montgomery joining the mix, and Tank Dell coming back should make life easier for C.J. Stroud. If Stroud moves from average to a little above average, and the defense really is that good, suddenly the whole team looks a lot more complete than flashy. What's interesting is the Almanac's argument that top defenses may be more reliable than people usually assume, with the number one DVOA defense winning the Super Bowl in each of the last 2 seasons. That does not mean defense is suddenly predictable in the same way offense can be, because it still depends on health, scheme, opponent quality, and a bunch of moving parts. But it does matter for Houston, because if an elite defense is a little stickier than the old wisdom said, the Texans' ceiling gets easier to believe. On the other end of the projection conversation, the Patriots have one of those schedules that makes you squint at the win total. By DVOA adjusted strength of schedule, their 2025 slate ranks as the 4th easiest of the last 50 years and the easiest of this century. That is softer than some famous schedules, including the 1991 Bills and the 1999 Rams, which is saying something. The warning attached to that is important. An easy schedule can boost your regular season record and still leave some pretty real flaws untouched. So if New England stacks wins, that may tell us something. But it may also tell us they had a very comfortable runway before meeting better teams in January. The Rams gave the Almanac one of the more fun outlier stats in the whole book. Through Week 6, they used 13 personnel on 31% of snaps, the highest rate recorded since this metric started in 2010. For context, the previous high was 17% by the 2021 Browns, so the Rams didn't just lead the category, they basically launched it into another zip code. Using 3 tight ends that often signals a real philosophical shift toward heavier groupings, and now the question becomes whether opponents can solve it and whether more of the league starts borrowing from it. Then there's Pittsburgh, which continues to produce one of the strangest offensive splits in football. The Steelers average 4.2 yards per pass on play action and 6.5 yards without play action, which was the biggest negative gap in the league. And somehow this has now happened for 11 straight seasons. At that point, it's hard to pin it on one quarterback, because the pattern survived Ben Roethlisberger's exit and now looks more like a systemic feature of the offense. Nobody seems to have a clean explanation, which honestly makes it even more fascinating. Football usually loves a theory, and this one keeps resisting one. A couple defensive notes really underline how messy evaluation can get. Cornerback remains one of the most volatile spots in the league, with coverage DVOA showing huge year-to-year swings for players like Jamel Dean near the top in one stretch, and former Lions corner Terry Arnold near the bottom in another. That's partly because it's hard to isolate what belongs to the corner and what belongs to the scheme, especially when man and zone can ask for very different things. It's also just a reminder that even elite corners usually don't stay at that level forever. The position is hard, exposed, and very dependent on context. The Jets offer a different kind of defensive volatility. Their 2025 takeaway rate was 1.7%, the lowest ever recorded, compared with a league average around 4%. That means even a modest return toward normal, something like roughly 0.7 interceptions per game, could noticeably improve how the defense looks in the rankings. So, when people talk about a defense built on thin margins, this is exactly what they mean. A little turnover randomness can change the entire vibe around a unit. Green Bay's projection hangs on a split that feels very modern and very important. Jordan Love graded as one of the best quarterbacks in football when he wasn't under pressure, and one of the worst when he was. The almanac notes that performance without pressure tends to carry over more reliably from year to year, so if the Packers protect him better, his baseline play can still hold up. But the trouble under pressure remains a real concern, especially once the games get tighter and pass rushes get nastier. That's the kind of split that can leave a team looking dangerous in broad daylight and fragile in the playoffs. The Bears are another team where the projection sounds exciting until you get to the line of scrimmage. They're projected for a top 2 offense, but the big caveat is offensive line health, especially at left tackle, where recent missed time and turnover have created real instability. The concern isn't whether the skill talent is there, it's whether the front can stay healthy enough for any of it to matter over a full season. Injuries to starters like Jonah Jackson and Donald Wright make that more than a background issue. It may be the single biggest thing standing between a dangerous offense on paper and a frustrating one on Sundays. One last projection call, worth noting. The almanac likes the Bengals over the Cowboys for a 2026 playoff spot. The case for Cincinnati is pretty clean. They made major defensive upgrades in the offseason, and they also get the easier projected schedule. Dallas comes off as the riskier pick because the defensive coordinator is unproven, and that uncertainty matters when so much of the team's outlook depends on the defense holding together. There's also a useful historical angle here. Rookie defenders tend to make a more measurable impact than rookie offensive players, which adds a little more confidence to the Bengals' improvement case. That's the roundup for today. Thanks for hanging out with Podkey NFL, where even the weirdest stat usually has company. Talk to you next time. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.